Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It is another Tuesday. I am happy that you're here. And of course, we will be looking at Unhook Your Children in these last days, parenting in the last days. Unhook your children. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we want to thank you so much for another Tuesday. We thank you for the peace that you're giving us through these programs and the direction. We ask that you will be with us now, be with our hearts and our minds, and be with all those who will join. Help us, Lord, to take your instructions. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, parenting in the last days. Unhook your children. Hooked. I don't know if you've ever been fishing, and if you know anything about fishing, you know that you need a hook to catch that fish. And I remember, seeing someone with something more, a little bit more fancy. We used to have, they still do it, where you could put a little worm on the hook and then you throw it in the water and you wait for that fish. It's a bait for the fish to be hooked. Now they have some little colored lights. It's not any creature or anything. It's just a light, probably some type of neon light that shines and flashes in the water, and the fish would be attracted to that. And once that fish is hooked, that fish has to stay there, wiggle and try to get off, but it is so hard. Maybe now and then they get to escape, but the majority of the time, that fisherman or whoever it is just reel that fish in, and that fish is caught, and they go ahead and do whatever with that fish. So today we want to talk about unhooking or unhook your children, because as children, if they're hooked to something, it is going to be hard for them to just come off. They're going to need parental help. Romans 12 verse 2, it says, "And be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God." So God is wanting us to be renewed, by our minds. If we conform to the world, if we get hooked to the things of the world, if our children get hooked to the things of the world, what is going to happen? But we should be what? Transformed. It starts where? In the mind. And that is what we want to talk about this evening. How it is that we can unhook, how it is that we can transform the minds of our children, to help them to transform their minds through monitoring them and helping them on their devices. We know that the screen usage is basically where? Everywhere. Everywhere. And as I mentioned, it's being called omnipresent. Of course, we know that God is the only one that is omnipresent, but it seemed that way because everywhere you turn, there is a screen. And if you notice on my screen, I have what it looks like is a city. This looks like New York City, with all the lights and so many screens. So can you imagine walking down that street with your children and trying to block something popping up here or something? It's going to be really hard for you to do that, right? It would be really challenging. And so the screens are everywhere. I went in the airport, there were screens before we went in. I went in, and those are, when we talk about screens, we're talking about anything, any screen, television, the phones, whatever, gaming, whatever, and all these different devices, the iPad and so forth, the computer, and many others that I'm not even, aware of. But on the airline, I had a challenge because the screen just popped up and they had some advert, and it was hard. You could turn it off, but if the pilot was going to speak, then you would hear, then the screen just comes on. And then you have people all around you who are watching stuff. And I'm an adult, and even me, I don't want to watch anything. I want to guard my mind. And my children were there, and I had to be ensuring that they're not looking on anybody else's screen. And even though from time to time I could pull up something for them to see, a map or so, it was hard. It was just hard to navigate that, because everyone around you had some form of screen watching, and the airline themselves had it. So it is tough. And these are the days that we're living in. So we're living in some really challenging times where screens are everywhere. And there are many parents who are caving into the cultural pressure that, oh, this person has a phone, so I have to get my child, or this, or they also have questions. What age is appropriate to give their child? And we're going to go through all of that this evening. We'll mention some of that. The schools are burdened with that, with the screen, what to do, because okay, it's educational purposes, but it's also a distraction, right? In the taxis, I spoke about my experience going in the taxi in the Caribbean, and I had to be like, no, I don't want this on. So everywhere, the brain is not getting enough rest, and the children are developing. This is very serious. We're in a crisis epidemic. This is a crisis. This is indeed a crisis in the lives of our children. So, benefits of children and teens using devices. Of course, we know it's not all, bad. We know they stay connected with their parents. Some parents say, well, the child is away and I want to be able to know they're at extra classes, and I want to be able to contact them and make sure they're where they're supposed to be, or I can call them and stuff like that. Think about what we used to do before that, right? But now the parents are saying, I need the child to have this. What about they needed to communicate with family and friends? So some countries, I think they have what you call maybe grandparents time or so, want to be on maybe FaceTime, WhatsApp, or one of those social media to just, say hello and to see the person live. Of course, educational purposes, we know that is there's a lot of learning opportunities through the screen, whether they're the apps, all these little alphabetical apps and stuff like that that people will have on, or books that they may read, or videos that they will watch, or instruction, whatever it is. So it's good for educational purposes as well. And entertainment, sometimes you may be wanting to watch something, or one of your hobbies, and seeing how this is done or whatever. Well, I guess that also comes under educational purposes. Maybe you're learning to sew. Everything these days is online. You can Google anything and find it. Somebody posted it graciously, and we can look at it. Entertainment, as I went back. So, entertainment, maybe music, listening to or watching your favorite, singer or whatever. Some people play games on it, even though that has its part, and whatever else, maybe family gathering or people just chit chatting and stuff like that. Religious purposes, even religious purposes, church, reading your Bible, a lot of that is on screen, right? And it's informative experiences, like, I'm on here now teaching. Okay, so that would come under educational purposes. So we know it is not all bad, but it's like, okay, we're in this age, it is everywhere. What do we do as God's people living in this time and day and age? Do we allow the culture to dictate to us how we operate? Do we allow the culture to say, this is how we're going to use the screen? Or are we supposed to put in somewhere else? So those are some benefits. Limited use. Be temperate in all things. That's what the Bible says, that we should be temperate. That's one of the fruits of the Spirit. So even though it is good, it's not an excuse to say, well, I was watching this, and so I watch it all day for hours and weeks. And unless it's something, sometimes you're trying to fix something and you may be maybe they're working on some type of thing that they need to fix in the home, and you just keep rewatching or to really get. But even then, you still have to have balance. Okay, so no screen time for children under 2 years old. I have seen this so much, and it's painful to watch and bring tears to my eyes. I have not introduced my kids to any screen during that time. It just didn't seem right. And the research is out a good while, the World Health Organization, saying that no screen time for children under 2 years old. But what do we see? As very early as even 6 months, parents are feeling proud, and that the children are looking at the screen, something that is unnatural. The beautiful world is out there. You can, and we'll go into that differently, when we come down. So limit it. No, absolutely no screen time for children under 2 years old. Their brains are developing. They need to develop, they're going to be developing their motor skills. They need to move around and explore. They need to see your facial expression when you say no or when you say yes, go ahead. They need to be able to interpret that, to look into your eyes and not being taught through a screen. They need your patience to be with them, to sit with them, right? So that is important for their natural brain development to not be looking through a screen, because we've seen where it's actually thins the cortex, which is for another presentation, right? That's where you have your reasoning and stuff like that, and your thinking, and it's thinning that. And we're in serious times. This is not a joke, and a lot of people feel that it's fancy. They feel like they're up with the times when they just give their that child a screen. They feel so proud. You're actually damaging your child. You're damaging the child's brain, right? So limited screen time up to an hour for ages 2 to 5 years old per day. Per day. And I have to tell you, even with this, my children, they have very limited. Sometimes the week will pass and they don't even remember, because we are doing so many other activities. And of course, I do let them watch a little screen. But even if I did not, it would not be a problem. It's nothing. It is better. Their minds are more at peace. I can tell you that. So time to up to an hour for children age. So this, take with discretion. Use this with discretion. You know your children and you know what you're dealing with. But don't be fooled to say, okay, they have to up to the time and they have to learn how to use it and stuff. No, I've seen where they've shown primates. I think I don't remember if it's some special type of monkeys or what, but they were just going through the screen, and they were like, we're really dumbed down, because the monkeys figured out how to use it. So it's nothing hard. They've even left a computer in certain parts of some countries, rural area, where children have never seen screen before, just left it there and hide to see, just experiments. I would not say this is right, but they have done that, put it out. Hopefully they talk with the parents that this is what they were going to do. And the children would just come and they turn it on, they figured out how to turn it, and in no time the children were using it. Never ever seen a screen before, and they were using it. That is to tell you how simple it is to use it. So don't be too proud to think that, yeah, they're using it and they're being smarter. No, it's actually dumbing them down. So we limit how much technology our kids use at home. That's Steve Jobs. When you talk to these people who, we know that this is a late Steve Jobs. I probably should have put that, but we know that this is what he said. And they said his children did not start use screen until, I think, after in 2012 or so, when he passed. So we limit how much technology our kids use at home. This is a person with the iPhone, the iPad, the Apple computer, right? This is a man behind the Apple computer. And he says, we often set a time after which there is no screen time, and in their case, that helps them get to sleep at a reasonable hour. That's Bill Gates. This is very troubling, right? This is very troubling, because I have seen persons who tell me they cannot get their child to sleep until after 1. It's shocking. In the morning, or midnight, past midnight, they cannot. Because, and I'm like, the child is overstimulated. The child wants to use a screen and they scream. Are you scared of screams? I remember, and this can be a little gruesome, when a child lost an eye. Eye was damaged, and she asked her mom what happened, and she said, well, you had the pen, you had some scissors or something, and I tried to get it and you wouldn't let me, and then you had it and that happened. And the child running down her mouth said, would you like somebody to do that to you? The adult, no. The adult was doing that, because her mom did not put, it's a child, get it from that child, put the child to bed, do it gently, but be firm and loving, and said, no, it is time for bed. The lights are going to go out. So if you want to go in your bed and scream, but the lights are going out, right? So put limits on the screen. Little children, 4 or 5 years old, on it right up. If it's on, they will be on it, right? And if you have your television on as well, that will happen. So we also have to model what we teach. I don't generally want my kids to be sitting in front of a TV or a computer for a long period of time. This is Mark Zuckerberg now from Facebook, right? The CEO of Facebook. He's saying no. So all these tech people have balance, right? Is the world wiser than the people of God? What about us? What should we do when all these tech people, the persons who would design these platforms and this technology, say, no, we have to put brakes on it. It's good, but we have to put brakes on it. We limit our kids. They're protecting what? Their generation. They're serious about their generation and protecting their offspring. What about us? Parents, what about you? Are you serious about protecting your offspring? Or are you just going to let them just go loose like goats along? No, they are children, they are human beings, and we have to put things in place. Former Facebook exec Chamath Palihapitiya, I hope I pronounced that right, told an audience at Stanford he has, and I took out that word there on purpose because it was not fit to put on my program, told an audience at Stanford he has tremendous guilt about helping to build a social network and that his children aren't allowed to use that garbage. That's what he's calling it, filth, basically, that was on it. So think, people, we have to think. The problems with screens for children, what are we seeing? We're seeing obesity. And we know that this is a disease and it leads to a lot of problems, right? Childhood obesity, because the children are not exercising, and all of that movement is crucial for your brain development. So you can actually hamper a child's brain development. And a lot of these different diseases that children are coming with so early could very well be the screens. Some of them, they said, well, you know what? This is an experiment with the different platforms on this generation. We don't truly know what the impact will be years to come. You're going to see, you're already feeling it. You're going to see worse. Inadequate sleep schedules and insufficient sleep, because parents when you look at this, the child is not getting enough sleep and they're insufficient or not enough. They're not going to bed on time, right? And they have to wake up for school the next morning or whatever activity else they have the next morning. But remember, when you're sleeping, your body is what? Repairing. Your body is actually repairing, getting rid of the cells breaking down, and your body is at rest. It's a time for rest, and there's a certain time that is very important. And there's so many things that goes on in the body biologically in terms of sleep, when you're sleeping, that is crucial for a child's development. And children need sleep. Even now they're doing studies to say women need more sleep than men. It seems like even 9 hours or more. So children definitely need sleep. And the younger they are, you know that babies will need like 20. They're coming down to 14 hours, 12 hours of sleep. Children do need sleep for their development. We're seeing behavioral problems, a lot of behavioral problems, conflict with parents, right? We are seeing there's what you call now, with the children, we don't want to use the word rude behavior, but they're really acting up, as you would say. They're actually acting up, and they're just issues. They're not wanting to comply. They are just they're screaming and having tantrums and lots of stuff because of the screen, especially when it is taken away. You can see that, yes, there has been severe maybe addiction to this thing. And addiction is a very strong word that you want to be careful of using. But yes, we have seen those issues. So we have a lot of problems and indiscipline that is there coming on there with our little children because of it. Delays in language and social skills development. And one of the things with the delays is that there's not a lot of interaction. You need that human interaction, and you need the speech. So the parents are giving them these toys and the screen to speak to them. So an artificial dialogue is going on. A lot of things in our society is artificial, a lot. Children gone school all day, mother gone all day, father gone all day, and we expect that there's some way the home is going to just be settled. And a lot of times, depending on the child, they are away on screens. And if you hire a nanny, and I've seen where the nannies just feed the child, and that's it. They don't open their mouth and speak to the child at all. right? They have set up cameras and they show you all they do, they feed and they go back on their phone for the whole time. What kind of parent, what is that? You know, this child now needs to walk. They need fresh air. You need to talk to the child and say, the child is listening to you. This is the grass, and you go outside and you show them. You let them play and different kind of stuff. Pick up stone and sticks and speak to the child. Just speak to the child normally. Good morning. Would you what? Okay, for breakfast this morning, we're gonna have this and that, right? And I hope that you really enjoy your breakfast. Mommy put a lot of love in it and so forth. And just speak to the child naturally. This is important for language and social development. Okay, so not speaking to the child and giving the child a thing, then you after a sudden you need speech therapy. We're really doing things, but we're doing in ourselves, right? Then you have to say, okay, we need speech therapy to check up this child. All the child needs is engagement, human interaction, and speak to that child. Speak life into that child. This child is listening and learning. That is how you learn languages. As a matter of fact, if you really want to learn a language, you should not be writing the language first. And that's a backward way of doing it, where you go to school now and you're trying to learn a language and you write it because you want to learn, like I'm speaking English. And if I want to learn Spanish, I go now to write it down. The first thing that I should do if I want to speak that language fluently is just hear the language, just like a baby. Speak it, just hear it spoken before you see anything written. And that pours into you. And then after probably a couple of years, you should be able to go ahead now and read it. It's much easier. It's really, really much easier. So that's the same thing like a child learning. They're not saying anything, but they're learning. And then all of a sudden they start speaking at 3 years old. What do you think happened? You think they just jump up and start speaking at 3? They were listening all along, right? And sometimes you watch them and they start following you, saying the things that you're saying or doing the things that you're doing and so forth, because they are listening and following you. Violence in children, aggressive, right? You see that in them. And violence, they're angry, they're fighting and all of that. The screen, I've seen it with my own 2 eyes. Violence and just cuss words and everything, it's too much coming at them too fast and they're not able to process it. And you take it from them and they get angry. And even them using it, you're right, they need an outlet. They need peace. We're destroying children when you do that. They need a calm nature. You ever see a child just playing outside and it's so peaceful and they're calm and you say, this is a quiet child and they don't give trouble. They're at peace with nature. Okay. And the screen is artificial and it's interfering with their brain process and how their brain is wired. That's a whole nother scientific thing. Attention problems. Remember now, they said human beings, our attention span is less than a goldfish now. Because the goldfish is 9 seconds and now human beings are 7 seconds. So some people, they come and they're just gone. So now they have some videos where everything has to be dancing, fashion, quick to get people's attention to stop in and listen. Something for their own good, right? To catch your attention, because once the attention is gone, they're gone to another video and they keep skipping away. And that is not good. So I'm very grateful for those who have joined and you're still on. Feel free to comment, ask any questions, just participate, so I know that you're actually there and you're active. Less time learning. That is interesting because you think that this screening is going to be learning, but what they have figured is that majority of the time that children are on screen, they're not doing anything educational. Right? Majority of the time. So that is important to look into. So they're not engaged in terms of learning. Of course, I think they're learning because you're always learning something, but maybe not what the parents really want them to learn, or the brain is idle. I remember when television came out and they did a lot of research and told you they did some tests on the brain, and the brain waves that was coming up from your brain while watching television is the same that came when you're sleeping. So it's like your brain is sleeping. And that is why a lot of people get easily brainwashed, because they're not actively thinking about things. And by saying things over and over in the media, while they're just watching, after a while, it sounds like it's the truth and they start believing it, because they're not really thinking through it. Okay, so there's some more problems. Addictions, as I mentioned before, gaming, social media. A lot of people know, some persons are, they have to be in therapy. The children have to be in therapy. It's just a hard thing. It's like, the brain was getting all of this feeding, like dopamine, that it's a chemical in the brain. It makes it a feel good. It's like a feel good hormone. And when the brain releases that, it enforces each time you do something that is pleasurable, it just creates this track, and you want more and more of it. And so the gaming does that, and it's hard. It's like people, you're taking off drugs, withdrawal. It's very hard for the children. And so people have to be paying thousands of dollars for therapy for their kids, something that should not have been done in the first place. So if you're along that lines, then put certain things in track. Social media, people have taken their children off, and they've found ways to get back on and to change identity and all these different things, right? What's up? And mental health issues, ADHD, that's a big, big one, right? Attention deficit disorder. That's a huge, huge one. And a lot of people say, oh, my child is so bouncy, bouncy, and they cannot sit down. I always give a simple remedy. It's not that simple because, of course, some persons have to go to therapy. But the research is also showing that just taking the kids off screen and giving them more time outside to play and run, all the children, and especially boys, the way they're wired, giving them that time, you will reduce a lot of the symptoms. Okay. Marsha is talking about serotonin. So it will definitely, yes, reduce a lot of the symptoms that you have there. So, right. So therefore, we have to pay attention. Pay attention to what it is that we're doing with our children. Pay attention to our mental health. So the Center for Disease Control, mental, behavioral, and developmental disorders begin in early childhood. This is what they're seeing. 1 in 6 U.S. children aged 2 to 8 years had a diagnosed mental, behavioral, or developmental disorder. 17.4% had this diagnosis. And this evening, I'm going to do a part 2 because I'm going to focus on the teens. Throughout this, I'm focusing on those 12 under 13 this evening. So they will be mostly geared towards that. So 1 in 6, isn't that high? You walk and you see children, and 1 in 6 of them have been diagnosed with a mental disorder, some type of mental or behavioral issue. What is causing this? And if you look at the stats, it has not been so all along. And it's not because we get better at diagnosis. No, it is because this is what is now going on with the screen and the technology. This is giving this type of an issue. So we have to pay attention to our children's mental health. So I would say, what about their spiritual health? Because it ties in. Everything ties in. So those are things that we have to, think about when we're thinking about unhooking our children. These are stats that is out there. Are we just going to sit down? Are you going to just sit down and say, oh, my child has this and that? It could very well trace back to the screen, right? NBC News. NBC News says what? Social media is driving teen mental health crisis. Surgeon General warns advisory. So the Surgeon General is warning that the social media is driving teen mental health crisis. And just mention a little bit about the teen here. Advisory calls attention to growing concerns about the link between social media use and depression and anxiety in adolescents. This is just last year. So there is a huge concern and there's a crisis. The hospitals are feeling overwhelmed with this. The schools, especially the schools, are seeing this a whole lot. And it is a crisis, something that we cannot overlook. So parents, we have to pay attention to these things. You have to be aware. So this evening's program is about awareness. Now, mental health experts warn that YouTube is a growing source of anxiety and inappropriate sexual behavior among kids under the age of 13, and parents and educators need to get involved. Now, when it comes on to this, A lot of parents may think that they just have the YouTube. This is one of the most tempting thing ever. And another person mentioned the lack of self-control that has risen up because you have introduced this to children that are learning to have self-control. Remember, this is a whole process, it's a fruit that has to be born through certain things, right? Yes. So there's a great liability when it comes on to children. So we have to pay attention. You have to be what? Vigilant. Remember my first, you have to be watchful. Persons have said, well, the school sent home computers for them, and the children now have the computer at home. And what should they do? Because they have to do their assignment. And as soon as any little thing, they're on YouTube. So when the child is supposed to be doing the schoolwork, they are on something else, and the parent don't know that. And a lady said it has turned her child upside down because she has been exposed to so many inappropriate things that she did not realize was going on in her life. So you have to be vigilant. One of the strategies I would say is that you should have the computer turned to whatever they're working on. It should not be a private in the desk. You know how they do it in the offices now, right? In the offices, you know how they do it? They just, you have to, majority, a lot of offices, depends, unless it is deep confidential stuff that you have, your office has to be, your computer need to be situated where it's not hidden, it's in the open. So people can see, even if they don't see the details, it is on an appropriate place that persons can see. So sometimes you have to do that because you don't know as soon as you turn your back. And as a parent, you're going to say, well, I cannot stand over the child for the whole 2 hours of that assignment, but it is in your house, right? And I showed you the city lights in the beginning. A lot of persons may think, well, we have to get out of the city because the city lights are here. It carry right in your house. So if it is in your house, that is in your home, you have to step up when it comes on to being vigilant. Put on parental controls, do what you got to do, but remember they can also get around those stuff. So what do? You have to be vigilant and be watchful. So the Jonathan Haidt, he wrote a book about the anxious generation, and some of my information is not showing here based on this slide, but he spoke about overprotection of children in the real world and underprotection online. He is a strong advocate for no smartphones before high school and no social media before no social media before high school either, before 16, I think 16 years old, no social media before 16 years old, and no smartphones usage in schools, period. He advocates for that. But are we saying you're just going to go in and grab phone now and everything and say, no, give me this? And no, you have to go in now and have dialogue with your, especially if it's a teen. You know, a child is a child. You set the boundaries up, and so for the teen as well. But you're going to have some serious dialogue to say, you know what, this is how we have been doing things, and we are going to do things the way God wants us to do it. So we are going to protect ourselves from, what it is that we're doing. We're also, it says here, overprotected children in the real world. So you go outside, you see a lot of parents there standing, watching their children. Or they're saying, don't climb up on that. Don't do that outside where they're supposed to be running up and down, climbing trees, swinging and so forth, right? So you would see them and you're protecting them. And remember, movement outside is natural. That is how the child is going to learn. Playing, when they're outside playing, that's how they see that somebody fell and is crying, saying, oh no, and that person needs help. That's how they will have disagreements and how they'll be able to, you'll be able to guide them into it. So they learn a whole lot outside in terms of playing. So you may be protecting them from that. And if you look back in society, we have seen now where, I think it's John Taylor Gatto, he spoke about extending childhood, where a lot of things that teenagers should be doing and working hard, and we baby them, right? We baby them. They're not, some teenagers don't even know how to wash dishes, put on a cup of water, nothing. You're babying them and protecting them and saying that while online, what happening to them online? Full-blown exposure. So we have to be balancing what we're doing. We have to be balancing what we're doing. That is where you need to protect them, because these are people coming in online that you don't know their values. You don't know what they believe, but they're pouring into your children. The influencers, yeah, this all this social media they're pouring in, but you're guarding them from climbing the tree out there. So say, oh, you're gonna climb and break your hand, or guarding them from running too fast. You know, guarding them from all these things, guarding them from picking up stones and dirtying up themselves and stuff like that. Think about it. Losing, then he spoke about in his book, losing the ability to be present. Like teenagers are losing that ability to be there. And they're also learning from the adults as well, right? But on the phone, they're there, but they're not there. The mind is somewhere else. We see this even in parents go to eat in restaurants, right? And they're there in restaurants to eat, and the phones come out, or the children have to have some kind of gadget, something to entertain them nonstop. How about just sitting and listening to the conversation and speaking to them? How are you doing? Or just them. When you're little, you used to sit down and just listen to adults and hear what they're saying. Look how they're operating, how they're folding their napkins. You can fold yours, or just sit down and look. It's fine. Nothing will happen. And if they can talk to and join in, it's right there, right? So they're losing the ability to be present. So you're there, but you're not there. You're not. It's like you're invisible. You're a zombie. You're just there. And that's not good. We want the teenager to be present. We want them to be engaged. They have a lot to say and to ask. They have questions to ask. We have questions to ask them. We need that engagement. We need that present. We need that interaction across age group, right? We need it across the age group. So we need them to be interacting with the elderly. The elderly need to interact with them, and so forth. And so this is where we have a problem, where even in the church, where you have all these generational churches and all these things to say they're trying to keep young people need to see example. They need to trust people. They need risk. They need guidance. This is where the parents come in. So to have children's church, I see a lot of persons advocate and lobby for children's church. They want children's church. What are the children? What are you going to do in children's church? To break it down to them. How did the child learn to speak? Were you breaking it down to them, or are you just talking and they get up and catch everything from you? Right? So, and they can learn and listen and analyze. It's a part of it. So if they're with little children all day in class, and even in his book, even this, he's speaking about, different generation, different age group. Because when they're playing outside with a mixture of age group, they learn from the bigger ones. The bigger ones all learn to be patient with them, to help them, and so forth. So you have that nice mixture, and the children develop faster, and their vocabulary, is enhanced, and so forth. So he advocates for no smartphones before high school. This whole thing exploded in 2010, 2012 when it came. I used to be having a flip phone, and I remember one time I was like, when I was here, I was like, why is everybody looking down on the screen? Because I didn't have that yet. And I'm like, what is on it? I was so curious to wonder what is keeping them on it so much. It didn't look right to me. And now it just come in like normal, because you see, you get used to it. But at first, I was very curious. I was like, everybody's just down on their phone. What is going on? I did not know they were doing Google. They had the social media. They had all these things. Everything was just in the phone. So he's saying this is a lot of drama in high school, which we'll talk about, and no social media before age 16. Listen, the social media, that is another thing that I'm going to delve into next time. And he's advocating for no phones in school, because the schools are having a hard time, a terrible, tough time with the distraction. And some schools and some states literally ban it. And I will dig deeper into that. Some states literally ban cell phone use totally from from the students. It doesn't make sense, because they're in the school, the class, and while they're in the class, they're not paying any attention. All they're doing is down like this on their phone, and the teacher is talking, and they're up and they're down and they're up. And I've seen it. I've walked into classes and walked past and seen the children on their phones right through. So now some schools decide that this can't work, because we're expecting about things to go smoothly with our exams, and they're not making it. Even the grading, everything, they're bringing right down to gravy. children are not motivated to do what they need to do. So schools are calling for more mental health specialists. Do you think this is going to help? They're calling for more psychologists coming in, the psychiatrists coming in, because you're having a lot of diagnosis at this young age. A lot of problems that they're seeing, and it's because of the social media. And more counselors have to come in to deal with this. So the devices, the internet, the technology is creating, if you ask me, it seems like more harm than good, right? So if you don't put balance in place, it's harming the children, because even though you're there to guide them through their studies, they're ending up on all these platforms because it's a wide web that is open against them there. So that's another issue that the schools are facing and everywhere. And I remember uh, a psychologist counselor, she said psychologist, I think she said that even in her practice she's having a challenge, because when the children would come in, and first time it would be the parents reading a book while they're waiting on her, and by the time she gets in there, they have the devices, and when she gets in now to talk with the parents and to she has, it's like war breakout, because a child does not want to give up they don't want to give up the device. So it's a lot of fighting. And she said first time it was like, hi, I'm so and so, and it would be so easy to put away the book. But because of this, the technology, the screens addictive, they don't want to give it up. There is a desperate plea for detoxing. You will see there's a cry out there. Detox. People need to detox. Some people say, man, I try to give it up and I can't. It's so addictive. I want to just run, leave it. People talk about that. And young people too. Young people, I've heard with my own 2 ears, said, I am so desperate. I want to give up this gaming and I cannot. They can, but it will take what? Parental, somebody to step in and to help them and to guide them. So this is important. Smartphone free childhood. Is that possible? Yes, smartphone. Yes, a smartphone. I'm not talking about the tablets that they have or so. Children are given smartphones with the wide web. Why? Why are people doing this to their children? Why would you give them a cell phone with the wide web open? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. I've seen children, 7-year-old on YouTube, fully watching YouTube. Normally, they don't have no blockage. Have mercy. This is very dangerous. What are we doing? Do you know the brain, how you rot the kid's brain? Do you know the damage, the lifetime challenges that these children are going to have? Parenting in the last days. That's why God said, listen, perilous times are here, perilous. Because if parents are selfish in their ways and their desires to say, well, I'm doing this and I'm busy, I just hand that to the child so that to babysit. Listen, if that is the way we are parenting, the generation is in serious trouble. If the way you are going to parent, right? If the way you're going to parent is to just hand that child a device when the child acts up, or when you want to do something, or when you're going somewhere, you just say, you turn on the TV all the time, you don't have any interaction. That child is going to grow up thinking, what? My childhood was wasted. They don't want to see it now. But when they grow big, they say, what did I do? All we did were on video games for the whole of our childhood. Isn't that, it is sad. It's very sad. So I trust and hope that, as you watch this, that things will change. It can't continue like that. Yes, Ophelia said, very sad. Yeah. So we can't do that. We have I have beautiful childhood memories of going places and doing things, picking fruit. And listen, parents, it don't have to be every time that the child is with you. It has to be something educational per se. Like I said, they're always learning. But where you have to take them and say, okay, this is 1 plus a million plus, or you have to be showing them and reading this and that. It doesn't have to be. Your very presence there, walking with them, just talking, just life. Just living life is good. You and the children there, they say, man, I remember me and my mom washing dishes. Such a child, sweet memory, right? You look back and you say, wow, we had that time. I remember you say you sit down and just talk to my dad. sweet, precious memory. Right? Those are the simple things of life, and it makes life beautiful. So we don't have to fussy ourselves to entertain every minute. Entertain every minute. Sometimes it's just showing a child something. I remember this lady, Miss Agnes, so those who know her, she taught me how to thread a needle. So you would think that I'm around adults all the time, and somehow somebody thought she was the one who taught me to thread a needle. I remember her, and I had sisters who were dressmakers. I don't think I was around one of them at the time. Yeah, I had sisters who were dressmakers, and Miss Agnes was the one when I was little because she taught me earlier. She taught me how to just do this, roll it up, you know, how you do it, and then you just thread the needle. I remember that. And I held that she was the one who taught me that. You see it? So it didn't have to be anything fancy, something very simple, but it was important. So, how to unhook your children from screens? We talk about the fish that has been hooked and how you're going to pull off. Somebody has to come and undo that. First thing, get serious. Parents, get serious. If you don't get serious with nothing, it won't happen. Just think about that. Think about when you decided that, you know what, I'm going to make this lifetime change. I'm going to go back to school. I'm going to take care of this baby. I'm going to cook this meal. You had to make up your mind. So get serious. If you don't get serious with anything at all, it won't change. You'll continue on the same trajectory. So we want you to get serious, to take that warning and make up your mind and think about it. Say, you know what? I can do this. This is what the Lord wants me to do. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this for my generation. Did I tell you that the Lord blessing generation? The devil talk about no. You bow down and I give you this no. God says, listen, you serve me, I bless you for generations. You see how God generous? He's generous. And that is why Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed. The Bible said pride of life, abundance of idleness. That is in it. I did that in the first one. Abundance of what? Idleness. That is something that a lot of people don't talk about, but that is one of it. And the screen is a waste of babies and a little child's time. The child don't know, child innocent. You have to guide. So the next one is what? How to unhook the word of God. Bond over the word of God. Let the word of God be your guide, parents. Don't follow the culture. Do not follow the culture. Follow God. The culture will lead you astray. But if you follow God, you'll never walk in darkness. So that's why the Bible says, finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue and if there be any praise, what you want to do, think on these things. Okay? So think on these things. Think on the things that are lovely and that are beautiful. And how are you going to do that? You have to be focusing on it. And I spoke about renewing. Do not conform to this world, but what? By the renewing of your mind. And for our children, we cannot allow their minds to be rotting on these things, but we want them to think on things that are true and pure and beautiful, honest, lovely. Every time I pray for my kids. I pray that in their ears, Lord, help them to love the things that are true and beautiful. Give us appetite for those things. Because you know, our taste buds are corrupted with this world. You watch certain things and you just corrupt you and you want to see, but it's not good, you know. So you want God to give you that appetite for things that are lovely and beautiful. When you look outside and you see the trees and the grass, you don't just look out there and say, oh, they're boring. No, you see the beauty. You see the fresh air, you see the peace, you hear the birds, and you know you can think and you have solitude. So start from the word of God. Let the word of God guide you. Guide your steps as you're going to make these decisions for you to unhook your children. What does the Lord say that I should do? Train when you walk, when you rise by the way, moment by moment, train and teach. And that's what you have to do. Not a device. You can't give over that responsibility to a device. It doesn't have a brain. You have the brain, and we can use it and shape the mind of our children. Set boundaries. This one is hard, but I talked about setting boundaries the last time. Just pull from that one. Set clear boundaries with it. Say, this thing will not control us. It will come this far and no more. Right? The Bible talks about God setting boundaries on the sea. If not, all of us would have drawn long time, because you see the ocean deep and big and can just fill up everything. But God sets boundaries on it and said, you will come no further. Set boundaries on that technology in your life and say, listen, this will come no further. And like I said, if you're a parent and you're on it all the time, the children are going to see that, and that is what they will model. So you could have talked from now till tomorrow morning. If you don't interact with them and you keep telling them, take this, take that, no. Set boundaries as a family. You know what I think? I think God put us in family to save us, so we can have responsibility and accountability. So while the children are looking on us, we try to set the example, and then we look back at them and teach them. So we know the little eyes watching us, so we shape up by the grace of God, help, and then we turn around now and look back at them with our eyes and guide them, and by the grace of God, they too will shape up. So if necessary, you want to also to unhook, seek professional help, because some people try to, like I said, put it aside, put it away, but it really gets out of hand. Because it got out of hand, it's like hell breaking loose in their house to get rid of it. So they have to seek professional help to walk them through this crisis. It's not as easy as you think. When you have addiction, people have to get professional help to get off their addiction, and sometimes they have to get in a community of support. So as simple as you see it there, it's not as easy to say. You have to really do that if the child has gone too far. So screen-free activities that I want to suggest. Read to your children. I was listening to a radio program some years ago, and they were actually telling parents to read to their children. I said, man, look at that. Read to your children. They were encouraging them because they said they had their vocabulary issues were coming up. Just the whole developmental issues that they were having, that they needed to remind parents of, like, listen, read to your children to build their vocabulary and a way for them to communicate. Because I have seen people who just can't communicate. They don't have the communication is always there. We know that. But verbally, their vocabulary is lacking. You ever see it? And sometimes they just cuss because they just don't have the words to express themselves. So instead of staying there and explain, they just can't speak. And I'm like, I've seen it. And I was like, very limited vocabulary they cannot. So read to your children to build that vocabulary and those communication skills. Read the Bible to them. Read the Bible, full of good things. The children will love it. When I read the Bible to my children, they love it. They ask questions, especially the stories. They want to find out what happened next, because they have some nice chapters there that will tell you going into the story, and they're in there listening, and then they say, what happened? Because sometimes I'm like, okay, tomorrow we'll continue the next chapter. Hear them? No, they want to hear it. No. I'm like, okay, tomorrow we have part 2 and we discuss. So sometimes we go ahead and read because they're like, wow. So the children will listen and read books. Go to the library if you don't have a lot of books in your house. The library free. All you do, just be careful. Be careful. Vet the books out there, because I tell you, this is everything flinging into the home to confuse you. So read them before, so that to make sure you have the values, especially little children. The books are not long. You can just browse through and read them. So eat together as a family without the screens. Put that on. That's not hard. If you start it, just put it over there. Everybody, some people have some things developed. You come to the table, all screens go in that box or wherever or behind you. Sit and have communication with the family. Look into their eyes and listen and talk. There was a man who shared his experience. He said he used to read the Bible with his family after every meal. Wherever he went with the children, wherever they went, he would just, after meals, he read. It was just something that he did. We know that, I'm not saying you have to do it, because you need to walk around a little bit after you eat. It's good to walk around a little bit. But he had developed this habit as after meals, he would just read. And the children knew the entire New Testament from Matthew to Revelation. They knew the entire one by heart, verbatim, because he read it. And he was not telling them to memorize it. He just kept read it over and over without nothing said. He just read. And they were there and they just listened. Hour of reading. Think about that. Discipline family. Plan for family evenings without screens. Just plan and say, all right, we're going to do something now. We're going to turn off the screen. We won't have any screen, right? Play games together. That is important. Play some games together. There are lots of games with those screens. Even here, we play some charades where you just act out something silly, and to put yourself in that and to act it out is not easy. So you see, maybe they put out a scissors and you have to act, and the other person has to guess what it is, and you just read it off the paper and come up with whatever. To play games together, you're going to be bonding and creating memories. Screen free activities indoors. These are: cook a meal together. Many children grow up and can't cook a meal. Sometimes we think that, and I've seen that, and I've seen persons around me who cook very tasty meals, and they have passed on. And I was like, you saw them cooking, but I never really go and say, show me exactly what you do or watch, right? And so that skill is gone. That tasty dish is gone, and it was open. So don't think that because the child is in the house, you're cooking, they know exactly what you're doing. No, you have to show them. Do a decluttering or a spring cleaning. Sometimes you just say, let's let's go clean. Put away this and make we just declutter and throw these paper, go through these mails that we have piled up here in paper and just do it. Start a project together. You can do that. Come up with something and say, okay, let's do some crocheting. Let's see if we can crochet a whole bag. If you know it, you can teach a child. Or you can say, all right, we're gonna build this, or we're gonna build that. Just come up with things that you can do together as a project that you start and you finish. Could be sewing something, building something, building recipes, and say, okay, we want to compile this wherever from recipe books or special recipes in one place here. Because maybe you go to one recipe book and you only use 3 recipes. You decide, let's compile the ones that we really, really like. Just so simple, right? But you can do it. Learn to play an instrument. And this is very good. Learn to play an instrument together. It takes patience, it takes time, it takes discipline. And together you can be going through it and learning it, right? Build puzzles. So some of these things you don't have to buy anything too much. They have dollar puzzles in the dollar store here in the US. Other places you may have to invest a little bit more, or you can make up your own. Sometimes we used to play a lot of paper games when we were growing up. Paper games were not hard to play. We just draw up line and say boys, girls, animal, place, and thing. And you have to think about a boy name, remember that? Or a girl name with A, or whatever the person said in their mind. Then you just start. Okay, and you say their ABC, and you say it in your mind and say stop. And if you stop at D, you say D, and everybody start right. A name with B, with D, a place, and so forth. And you say stop, and you check up your points. Well, it's nothing. And sometimes you learn things because people saying, calling some place name with D, and you say, no place, no name that. Here you, yes. And they actually tell you, and it's true, or a name or something. So you learn too. How about screen-free activities outdoors? You can do things indoor. And listen, this is just a drop in the bucket because of time. There are lots of things that you can do. I could sit down here and tell you 100 things, literally, that you can do. Plenty of play time, free play. Free play is very important for children's development. Where free play means it's not organized by any adult. You're not going out there to tell them anything. You just go there and run and play. They come up with their own games. That is one of the best ways to develop creativity, thinking skills. You see how we are tricked into all children running up and down, they waste time. Now in schools, they're in schools too long all day, and they get some schools 20 minutes play. That's not enough for child's development. So somebody said, well, it's the schools are doing going against this and that. They said, no, the schools are designed to run how it is. You go back and look in the history. That's how it is designed to run, to cripple children so that not those the teachers are there doing their best. They don't know. It's a system. When you go back the history, they said, we don't want thinkers. We want factory workers. We want people who come a factory and they just sit and work until break, they take the break. So the school is programmed for factory workers, and persons have not gone through to say, why are we doing that? We're not working in factory. Let us change it up. So those of you who are listening now, those are some things that you can challenge, right? To change up some of the things with some of the schools. Especially you're in a Christian school, we don't have to be following the same pattern of everybody. That's a great way to win many souls for Christ. We can do things differently. Plan more screen-free family time. Go ahead and do that outside. Go for a walk in nature. I like when nature cover me, when we go in woods. People are scared of woods because you know why you're scared of woods? And I can do a program on nature by itself because that's a spiritual need. That is a spiritual need for nature. That is you're missing out on the divine. That's why people are getting more and more wicked and violent. No, not enough nature. In the movies, when we're growing up, they always show us in nature how the woods, people are so scared of the woods because they show it in movie. They're showing it haunted and you're hearing sounds and the woods and you're like, oh, hurry up and when you watch a movie, somebody in there, your favorite star, you're like, hurry up and come out the woods, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. Because they're showing you darkness and all the sounds, right? And in the city, you hear, ooh, everybody just hip and nice. And so in your mind, it's like, oh, that's a cool place. So the whole thing gets so scary. So now you're scared to walk in nature. Well, we have been finding some beautiful, quiet trails, peaceful. You just walk in there, not a soul to bother you. And your mind, it's like you're purifying the mind. It does something to you. And it draws you closer to God. And it lets you not be so full of, it cleanses you from idolatry. Like literally. It breaks down them, it just brings the mind closer to God. So that's something you should practice with your family. Walking with them in the trail for miles, your teenagers, and talking with them, and especially some places you can walk, go and pick mango walk. And you remember those days? I pick some mangoes and apples and whatever it is. You can do that. We can do some of that right anywhere you are. You can find a little place and do some nature walking. Or just go to the park. Get outside. Get off the devices. That's the aim here. Start small and then you can go on. Teach social skills. Engage with people. Go door to door. Show your children how to behave. Smile. You know, I remember there was a story where the man said I think his uncle Arthur's story. The girl smiled in the congregation to the man. She smiled to the man, and he left her millions of dollars just for a smile. So they were like, "Wow, how much is a smile worth?" Literally, you know, because I don't know how he was feeling that day, but she gave him the most beautiful smile, and she inherited millions. So even just going door to door, talking to people, spreading the good news of salvation. Say, come on, young people, make we go look for sister so and so up the road. This elderly lady, she live by herself. Let's see if we can clean up her yard, help her outside, see if she needs any help, or just talk to her. Build up those little skills and let them see how you interact. They're watching you and see how you treat people. At the end of the day, that's what they will remember. How you treated people, you treat them. And that will go a far way. Observe your environment. All right? Observe your environment. Look around. You know, some people go in and never see that. They hold on their head for the whole time to the screen. They did not know that a sign was up there, the stop sign. Speak to the children. That's the stop sign. Say to them, look around, see if we can find back our routes here without the GPS. Who remember where to turn or whatever, you know, do some things like that. Let them observe their environment and see. There were a group of ladies who were walking, and they decided to walk because of heart diseases and different things. In African, I think it's the African American community. And they told us, they said by walking, they were just walking. They realized the road needed fixing. They realized this light wire fell down, lots of, and they did so many things in the community just because they were walking. They saw there were a lot of needs, right? So that is one thing. Take them grocery shopping and teach them how groceries are selected. This is just basic, but you can do it. Instead of on the screen all the time I see children on the screen in the grocery shop. No, that's a teachable moment. Show them and say, you see your inflation, you know, you realize? And I see that. This don't let me even get on that. So you can show them when they're there saying, I want this, I want that. Say, look, last week we came here and this thing was $3. Look, this week, and then less than a week is $5 something. This is, you know, and you show them now. So how much more has it gone up to? That's a little math they can do right there, calculation. Start a garden. Go on, we can start a garden, simple. Some people have nice plot of land there, the backyard empty and dry, nothing. Put some flowers in there, put some food in there and start a garden. Get them off the screen. This is just basic. And you can do this with little children. I kept it simple. Little children can do these things and enjoy it. So I'm winding down now. It says, this is it. A prudent man foresees, this Proverbs 22 verse 3. A prudent man foreseeth the evil and hideth himself. But the simple pass on and are punished. And the NIV version, to explain a little more, it says, the prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. So parents, unhook your children. If you see anything that I've said here that makes any sense, this is a good time to go ahead and unhook your children. And as I was talking about going out and socializing, I remember going out with my father on the routes, and he would stop at different shops and he would be selling. And you would see that I realized that man lived his life. He stopped and laughed and talked to people. He was never in a rush, right? He would stop and talk. People had stress, he would listen and talk to them and go right throughout his route. It was just a joy. And when it was time to eat, he didn't jump in the vehicle and say, come, we have to sell at the next. We sat down at the restaurant wherever we stopped and we ate our lunch. Those were very good things. And I learned that. Those are things that I learned. So going back to this, be prudent, right? Don't just see danger and run into it and be simpleton, a simpleton. And so you see that the internet is crushing the brain of your children. You see that your house don't have no peace in somebody can give you a device and you are going on good. Put things in place, put boundaries on it, or get it out of your house, especially if your children are little. Manage a little. If you have one and two in our homes, we don't have a lot of devices. We have our two devices or three, maybe our phone or computer and another thing, and everything is managed. We share it together, right? Except the phone, we have our individual phone, but we share our devices. There's nothing to anybody go lock up in anything. We share it with the children and use it. So plan on so those things, and as the children get older, teach them, because if you give it to them when they're developing their character, it is going to harm them in a big way. And next week I will share with you a child, hopefully I can, who says that they wish their parent had done something. So do something, and I trust and hope that this will help you on your journey, your parenting journey, to unhook your children and get them hooked to the right thing. Get them hooked to things that are beautiful and lovely. Thank you so very much for staying with me throughout this presentation. Thank you for your participation, whether you commented or you liked and share. Whatever it is that you do, we truly appreciate it. See you next Tuesday. Have a great night.